Hello, everybody. I hope you guys are all enjoying your Saturday morning. Today, we're going to be looking at where winter is, and we're going to kind of be looking at a longer range outlook and kind of trying to figure out when winter is really going to start happening over parts of the eastern U.S. It is already setting in over parts of the west where you are already having below average temperatures, but I really think the bulk of when this colder air and the snowier weather is going to come in is right around that late January, February time frame. And especially when you're looking at these longer range models, when you're looking at the Climate Prediction Center, all of these different outlets, you're seeing pretty much all of them agreeing that you are going to have this colder air at least at the latest by February. Some indications coming in by mid to late January. So we are going to be talking about that, and we're going to be looking at the Climate Prediction Center as well as the European model, which only goes out 240 hours. So that's a bit more a shorter term. And then we're going to be looking at the Climate Forecasting System, the CFS model, and the CFS goes out about a month or so. The Climate Prediction Center, we're going to be looking at temperature forecast from the 6 to 10 day outlook to the 8 to 14 day outlook, as well as the 1 month outlook as well. So we are starting with the National Weather Service as we always do, and we're going to quickly go over this. We have some wind advisories and all that going on over parts of the southeast, as well as a lot of wind going on over parts of the Midwest and parts of the Northwest. You have high wind warnings and high wind watches in effect from the Dakotas through into parts of the northern Rockies, as well as Southern California. And then we have winter weather advisories, all pretty much associated with Winter Storm Henry, over parts from northern Michigan through northernmost New England and into some isolated portions of the Appalachians. And we also have some more winter weather advisories for parts of the Pacific Northwest. Now that we have the National Weather Service out of the way, we are going to be focusing in on these temperatures. So here's the Climate Prediction Center's 6 to 10 day outlook going from the 9th of January through the 13th of January. And in these reds, this is all a percent chance that you are going to be above average, and this doesn't indicate how intense this warm or cold air will be, but it usually the higher chance you have of being above average or below average, usually the greater intensity it's going to come with. So you see, over much of the eastern U.S., we are above average and very above average at that. Portions really east of the Mississippi are going to be seeing temperatures that have a 70 or about a 60 to an 80% chance or of being above average. Meanwhile, as you get over to the western United States, you're seeing about a 33 to about a 70% chance of being above average or below average. And really, the heart of that cold, according to the Climate Prediction Center, which they are pretty good between that 6 to 14 day time frame when they do these forecasts. So they are pretty good with this, and it's pretty much a given that this is going to happen. They are showing the heart of that cold right around Southern California, Southern Nevada, into Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah as well. Now, we're going to look at the 8 to 14 day outlook. Looks pretty similar here. We do have the bulk of this cold still over parts of the western United States, the warmer air still over parts of the eastern United States, but that did shift a little bit eastward. So this cold air did shift a little eastward. I'll go back. You did see starting to now get into parts of northern Minnesota and into parts of the eastern Dakotas, but warm air is pretty much still here over parts of the eastern United States. Now, we are going to look at your 1 month outlook for January. So, this is your overall January forecast from the Climate Prediction Center. And you see, this was made on the 26th of December. So, this was before we had that really that intense high pressure near Bermuda that was bringing in all of this warm air and pushing it northward. So, this is when they made it around the 26th. So, the day after Christmas, and they had below average temperatures over the northern tier of the United States, and then they had above average temperatures or a chance of above average temperatures over southern Texas and the southern half of Florida, as well as the parts of the Pacific Northwest. I don't agree with the part with the Pacific Northwest. I think that many areas in the West, if you can go check out my January forecast, I had my below average temperatures pretty much something like this, and then my above average temperatures were pretty confined to the southern U.S. And I think that is still going to play out, but I only had slightly below average. I believe I had a shade of moderately below average over the northern U.S., and I still am kind of agreeing with my forecast until we get later in the month. Again, we are only at the 4th of January. A lot can change, and I think at the end of the month and getting into February, you are going to have intense cold air that is going to come in and kind of filter into the United States. So here is the 500 HBA height anomalies, and this is basically about 18,000 feet up in the atmosphere, and it's showing you where you have low pressures and high pressures. So this is a North America view. This is Greenland, Canada, the United States, and then also into Mexico. This is showing all of that, and you see we have this intense low pressure over Greenland and into northernmost Canada. That is your polar vortex, and you're gonna see this is gonna kind of shimmy around, move kind of in a circle pattern, and it's gonna kind of move further to the east, closer to Greenland. As we continue this, you also have this very intense low pressure over parts of Alaska, and this is your cold air. This is very cold air. Parts of Alaska and Western Canada have been experiencing very cold air recently, and this is going to be filtering in to parts of the Western United States later on, and it is filtering in just about a couple of days. It is going to be kind of moving southward. So as we continue this, you see how that polar vortex gets displaced, but it's still lodged very high and far to the north. You have this also this area of in Alaska is also getting dislodged. It's now moved onto shore, and you're going to see it starts to bring all of that cold air down south. Now this doesn't necessarily indicate it's cold air, but in this scenario, it's this Arctic air, the same air mass that was up here getting pulled south. So in this case, it is cold air that is being pulled south into the western United States. As we continue this, it starts to expand and grow, but it doesn't really move into the eastern United States too much. And the European model only goes out 10 days, so we don't get a full picture of what's going to happen. It only goes out 10 days. But you see that cold air starts to really build out in the western United States, and here's your polar vortex. It starts to get a little bit disorganized and disjointed, but it is still located pretty much in the same area, and it's still confined very far north into northern Canada and into Greenland and areas very far north in the Atlantic. So here is the actual temperature anomalies at the surface, and the reds, the browns, the whites indicate very above average temperatures or just above average temperatures. The blues, the greens, the purples, the pinks, all that is indicating below average temperatures. So you see much of the U.S. in above average temperatures. Here are your below average temperatures confined very far north, and this is what's going to have to make it far south in order for us to get some below average temperatures. So as we continue this, you see this does start to get displaced a little bit. It's moving into the western United States, but it is still not fully making it there. Now, as we get to the end of the Model 1, so this is right around the 13th of January, the middle point of January, right around that time period, you see, instead of being up here in Alaska and northwest Canada, it's now into southwestern Canada and kind of western Canada as a whole. So now this is going to make its way farther south, and then once it gets into the western U.S., this has the ability to transfer to the east. So as we continue this, it only goes out a couple frames. This is the max time period that it will go out, 240 hours, 10 days. But you see, it's getting ready to move further south. Now we are going to look at a longer range model here, and this is a CFS, the Climate Forecasting System. So you see, we have these above average temperatures. I'm just focused on the United States for now. You see, as we continue this, you're seeing that below average temperature move into the western U.S. Again, you have to take this with a grain of salt. The climate forecasting system, it's going out 768 hours, so it isn't going to be the most reliable. It gives us a general idea of what's going to happen, and this is one of the big factors in the Climate Prediction Center's forecast, but it doesn't tell the whole story, and you have to take it with a large grain of salt. You really can't say, oh, this is exactly what's going to happen, because, again, this is 260 hours out already, and again, it's going to be slightly inaccurate here and there. You see, we have below average temperatures over parts of the west, above average temperatures building in over the east with that high pressure that's going to be kind of blocking. And when you get that southeast ridge, that's when you get all that warm air to get pummeled into the eastern United States. As we continue this, you see that cold air starts to get dislodged from Canada according to this model, and you see this is that Arctic cold air, minus 40 degrees in temperature anomalies over parts of Western Canada, and this is what's going to be moving south and east. And I looked at this a couple times already, and a couple of runs. I looked at a couple different runs. Has been pretty consistent on this cold air being pushed south. This would be by the 18th of January. So you already have those near normal temperatures or slightly below average temperatures over the east, and you have that warmer temperature out in the western United States. As this Arctic cold air, according to this run of the model, close to minus 60 degrees in some areas, below average, but this most likely isn't going to come in this intensity, but the big idea that we want to take out of this is that it is dislodging this cold air from the Arctic areas. It's dislodging it from Alaska and northwest Canada and bringing this further south. So with this, you're going to get this very cold air. You're going to get some intense warm air in front of this, but then you're also going to get this very cold air. So as we get into this, this would be so this cold air is starting to move in right around the 21st, and then this would be by the 24th, the 25th, and then the 27th, and then you see this Arctic cold air coming into the central and eastern United States. It's very widespread by this point, and then we continue this, and you're sticking with this very cold air as we get into February. Now, this would be the 4th of February by this point. So, we have many indications that winter is still to come. There is still a lot of time for this, and you still can get a lot of snowstorms with this. We have had a lot of loaded winters where you get 30-40 inches of snow. You get double your average in a short span of about 4 to 8 weeks. So this can still definitely happen, and I think it is likely to happen where you get at least this very cold air. Now, I'm not going to go into your snowfall yet because that's one of the things that you can't really forecast that far out. It's harder to forecast that. So that's one of the things that you can't really forecast. But these temperature anomalies, these are easier to forecast, and we have more agreement that this is going to happen later in January and into February, and then potentially carrying into March and April with these below average temperatures if this pattern does set up. And I will probably do a couple more videos like this because this is a big talking point where people are looking at winter forecasts and they're saying, oh, well, because December was very warm, early January is very warm, that means that your winter forecast is completely inaccurate. That doesn't necessarily mean that because there's still a lot of time for everything to kind of change. It's only the 4th of January. We haven't even gone halfway through the winter, so we still do have a lot of time for all of this, for this pattern to really change and set up in a different fashion. Anyways, guys, if you did enjoy this video, please consider subscribing, leaving a like, and turning on notifications so you never miss a video when I upload. Anyways, guys, that was Eli the Weather Guy, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.